Hey, why don't you stand over there real quick?
Why?
No reason.
Okay, I guess.
Yeah, right there. Don't worry about it. Be all right.
Okay.
What's wrong?
I don't want to play anymore.
Fine. Hey guys, welcome to Gear Tasting. Today I'm going to walk through some lessons learned in gear that I did and didn't use, and basically my feedback from the rifles only class that I talked about a couple episodes ago. So, as I mentioned, I went to the Precision Rifle 1 and 2 combo class at Rifles Only. Phenomenal instruction. First of all, I can't recommend it enough. So, I wrote a very extensive article that just got published today. All over the AAR from that class, and I talked about a lot of different principles which I'm not necessarily going to go into on gear tasting. This is more about the gear rather than the principles and lessons learned from the actual shooting side of the house. So please check the description. We'll make sure we put the URL to that link or to the article that I wrote in there too. Super in-depth, probably one of the most in-depth articles I've ever written on ITS, so make sure you check it out just because I have a lot of hours into it. Got to make it worth your while, right? All right, so a couple things that I used at the Rifles Only class. So before I had gone over kind of gear selection and what I was taking, I probably used half the shit I took and left the other half back in the room. So what you see on the table kind of represents most of the majority of things that I took. Also some clothing back here that I'll talk about too. Like me though, I over prepare for everything I go do. So I had, basically extra rain gear out the ass. I took a poncho set. I took extra Arc'teryx stuff, and I'd never used it. But granted, it didn't rain, so I did have it and was prepared for it in case it happened. So as long as I'm talking about clothing, let me briefly touch on that real quick. So I took a shooter shirt from Tactical Distributors. Wore that. It was great. These are cotton shirts though, so as you know, sometimes when you're out in the heat, they can get a little hot with cotton. Cotton's rotten, especially for socks. Don't wear socks with cotton. Also took a couple of different Arc'teryx pieces. So this is, honestly, man, I'm terrible with Arc'teryx names. So that's the Arc'teryx top I took. And this is the Atom jacket. I do know that. I took that. Didn't have to wear that because it wasn't, it didn't get cold enough. We did have a day when we were shooting on the tower and a lot of wind came through. Basically, in that situation, I just put on the hard shell when that happened. So I was wearing Arc'teryx Sphinx pants pretty much the whole time. I really love these pants too. They've served me well for tons of different stuff. I've climbed mountains with them. I've gotten up to a couple 14ers. I've climbed on the Via Ferrata with Haley Strategic. I mean, they've just been everywhere. I can't say enough good things about the clothing. Wouldn't hesitate to purchase more of that again if I ever had to, because this stuff's lasted me for years. So, at any rate, also took a Boss Rugby shirt from Velocity Systems. I really love these shirts. Looking forward to getting a few more colors in these as well. So they have loop on the sleeves, also a pocket within that loop. But I really like the cut and the feel. They're kind of like a mesh shirt without really being a mesh shirt. So you can see kind of some of that mesh probably showing through there. So really like those shirts as well. So gun stuff. So first off, this gun shot like a champ. This is an accuracy ordnance build that again, my friend Jason let me borrow, and it shot like a freaking champ. One thing I did though when I was there is I replaced the bipod. So this is his bipod that he had, and already it's giving me problems. So basically what happens is there's one extension on this leg. So to actually change the extension, you have to unscrew this leg. You have to press the lever, and you have to kind of set it at the right height, and then you have to screw this back down, and that was a pain in the ass, especially sitting on a gun trying to adjust that. So I bought the model that has that adjustment. So all you do is you press that button, and then you just press it again, and you get to the right setting. It made it super easy. I could dial in both sides to the exact detent of where I was setting the bipod at. So that was a huge upgrade. I'm really glad I made that decision to purchase that. So just a tip there. So and then the other thing is I had this the smaller size bag from Rifles Only. This is kind of a bean bag to support a rear bag to support the stock as you're shooting. So basically, once you're in your shooting position, just to demonstrate, you're basically getting behind the gun, like so, and you're using your opposite hand to secure the rear bag to get this level. So there's a bubble level right here in the gun, and I was using that to get the gun straight this way. But then, basically, just with the reticle, I was using the bag to actually get the other level. So I also kind of upgraded to this bag. This is really lightweight. I don't know what it's stuffed with, but this is another one of the bags that they sell at Rifles Only. So I raided their pro shop and got a few things, obviously. But so this is a design that uses a QD, and as you can see with this rifle here on the Remington 40X, it's got basically these QD things here, so you can put this rear bag right on there and carry it with you if you need to, and then just detach it and use it for the rear bag when you need to. So I found that handy sometimes. It was weird. It was almost like this one was too small and this one was too big. So I don't know. I did wind up using both of those, and this was great too when we were in kind of a kneeling shooting position, shooting barricades and things like that. So I kind of used this between my knee right here and braced myself. So that kind of helped build my shooting platform as well, using something like that. Ammo worked like a champ, even though I had it bagged. Someone on YouTube commented, "Don't bag your ammo, bro." So I had it bagged, which means loose. So I took it out of the box and bagged it. The ammo that I had was put into this LBT bag. So basically I had each one of these filled with ammo, and it actually made it really easy to keep track of my rounds. So I was hoping it would work like that, and it did. So that was a cool thing to have. Made the ammo really nice and easy to store in one place, and we would shoot. We weren't shooting more than 100 rounds a day for sure. So what would happen is I'd just grab a bag for the day as we'd go out to the platform and the other shooting positions that we were building out there, and then I'd just switch that out every day. So that worked out pretty well. I also picked up this shooting mat. I used this a few times, but I really got in the dirt a lot too and shot. I didn't find myself really pulling this out a lot. There were a few times when I rolled out the shooting mat and actually got onto it, but for the most part, we were shooting a lot of different positions, obviously, so prone wasn't always available. We were shooting from barricades, we were shooting movers, standing up, we were shooting, God, there's tons of stuff we were doing. So on the tower, there's a tower that they have there at Rifles Only. When we were shooting up there, there wasn't any kind of real space to me to throw down a mat, so I didn't have it out there. So, and then let me talk about a couple things. So multitasker was invaluable out there. So they have this multitasker Series 3 has this guy right here. So this is a sight adjustment tool for an AR. You pop that out with a little magnetic thing, and you can pop in one of these quarter-inch bits. So it's a bit driver too. So when I was setting 0, I needed to loosen up my turret here and actually dial my dope back to 0 once we zeroed the gun. So this was handy for doing that. And if I wouldn't have had that, I would have gone, "Hey, can I borrow somebody's tool?" So I did have that, and it was good. Multitasker, I only used one mag the whole time, so there was never anything that we were doing more than 10 shots, and I didn't even bother loading another mag. I was just kind of taking loose rounds after we would do a drill and load a single mag back up. So, I had two 10-round mags and a 5-round mag, and I just used a single 10 the whole time. So definitely took too many of those, but hey, 2 is 1, right? So ammo was good. I didn't wind up really using my binoculars, so this has a mil reticle in it, so I could actually call corrections if I needed to with the binoculars. And I didn't find myself needing to do that. They had some awesome spotting scopes there that they had set up, so I just found myself looking through the spotting scope if I was doing anything like that. But Just to touch on that, and the article that I have really goes over this, but a huge lesson learned that is gear related comes down to the scope. So this scope has a mill reticle, which means it's basically like imperial metric. That's really what you're talking about with MOA and mill. And I'm not going to get too much into the discussion, but the reticle in this scope is mill, and the turret adjustment for elevation, and windage obviously too, is MOA. So there's a discrepancy there, because if I would need to adjust or dial my elevation or my dope, I would be looking through there to get the correction in mils, and I would have to dial in MOA. So what I would have to do is actually convert that manually. I either have to come up with a sheet that I had there with all the conversions of mill to MOA for, pretty much tons of numbers that I would have to be using potentially, and then be able to convert that to MOA and dial that. Or I would have to manually work out the calculation. In my dope book, I've got a small calculator that I carried with me, and I did use that quite a bit. But I also used a bullet flight app from Knights on my iPhone that I had with me as well. It was my ballistic software. So back to the discussion, what you want is to make sure that you have either mill or MOA. It doesn't matter which you're using. Just know that mill is used by more professionals. Military is all about mill. That's all they use. So you're more likely to encounter a spotter or somebody that's shooting with you that's in mills, and you always want to make sure your shooting partner has the same setup, because you don't want to be doing conversions. Meaning that if he's calling corrections to you in mill and you're dealing with MOA, you don't want to have to deal with that discrepancy. So, and again, there's obviously discrepancy between what you're seeing in the reticle on this scope. This is a Leupold Mark IV LR. So I was seeing mill, I was dialing MOA. It really wasn't a huge deal, because when someone was calling corrections to me, what I was seeing through the reticle was indeed what I was correcting for with holds and things like that. So I was able to make that calculation in the reticle, with specific holds. So it wasn't really a huge deal, but one thing that I really did not like about this is that, so for instance, when we were shooting 1,000 yards, my MOA was 40. So I had 40 degrees of adjustment on the top turret here. So every time this spins, it gives you 15 degrees of MOA you can adjust to. So that meant it was, 2.5 revolutions, pretty much 2.5 revolutions to get to 40 MOA on the scope. So that became a pain in the butt. There is an indicator here that actually shows you how many revolutions of the turret you've turned, but I really got weirded out with that. I kept triple checking myself to make sure I had the right number of revolutions and things like that. So to put that in perspective on a mill scope, Jason's MOA on his mill scope was 11 to shoot 1,000. So he has 10 degrees of adjustment on his top turret for elevation. He only had to spin that thing one time around and another click, or another mill from there. So definitely less adjustment on the scope that he was using. So just something to keep in mind. Just remember MOA or mill. You don't want a mix like this scope. Just my 2 cents. Slings, those were also a big kind of eye-opener for me as well. So this is a tab gear sling that I think Jason picked up from Rifles Only. This was their design quite a while ago. It's got, 2 Cobra buckles on it, as well as some other metal hardware and adjustment. It's pretty damn heavy for a sling. That was one downside to it. Another was that the slings that Rifles Only has now have this huge bungee in them. And I'm normally not a big fan of bungee, but when it comes to actually stabilizing your shooting positions, bungee is invaluable. So Jimbo, one of the instructors there, let me borrow his sling, and I had to pick one of these up too, just so I had one, just because it was awesome to use. So, basically the adjustment on it when it was, coming around, you could basically lean into the sling, and it would give you that feedback to kind of stabilize you even more as you were up on a barricade or a shooting platform and things like that. So I really found that the sling was money for sure. So good upgrade as well. Other gear that I had, so I did take my Oakleys. For those of you guys that saw my other gear tasting where I wasn't wearing ballistic eyewear protection, and I never used them. I went back to my Gators. So there you go. I've had this data book for a while too. This is an MOA Solutions data book, but honestly, I haven't done a lot with it, and the only thing I really used was in the back. I wrote down my dope from, this rifle's only course, and I used this to kind of show my previous dope from the last time I shot too. So I was comparing those. And you can read in the article about, everything about dope, which is data on previous engagements and how that works when you're shooting long range or precision rifle as well. So I'd like to pick up one of the rifles only data books. That's something that I kind of took out of the class, is that I'm not really tracking on some of the stuff that's in here. One is Jacob kind of busted the myth of cold bore data. So a lot of guys think that, oh, well, the first shot is going to get thrown because it's a cold bore. Well, read the article. I kind of talk about that in there and why Jacob said that's really just a myth. It's more a cold shooter, not a cold bore. So meaning you should warm up with some practice, jumping jacks, whatever. Warm yourself up before you shoot, and then that way you won't have that thrown shot on the first round. So another thing is I forgot my hearing protection at home. That was my lesson learned. So luckily somebody else had a pair of Peltors I could borrow, and those worked really well. But I found the Peltors suck batteries way faster than my Swordens. So that was kind of an eye opener to me too. I didn't know that. Maybe it was just that pair, but that was my experience with them. I went through 3 sets of batteries in the 5-day course, and I've had this set of batteries in here for God knows how long, probably at least a year or something like that. So that was huge to me to see that. And there were also, the set that I started out with were lithium batteries, and I changed to alkaline for the other 2 sets because that's just what I had on me in my spare battery stuff. So and one last thing I wanted to mention is kind of this veil that I've had. This isn't really a shemagh, but it's kind of similar to that, and all I did was drape it over myself because we had a day that it was pretty hot and sunny. So while I was on the gun, pretty much the whole day and prone on the sunny day, I just draped this over myself, and it kept the sun off my neck too. So I was really glad I had this on the sunny day. So just a quick look at some of the gear I took. I think I've gone over everything I put on the table. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can always use the pound tag Gear Tasting, and I will follow up with them. Thanks. And now some questions over coffee. So the first one we have is from Kyle G on YouTube, who asks, please show us your rifle setup. I would be happy to, Kyle. So I've talked about this rifle a little bit before. This is actually the rifle I built during the DIY AR15 build back on ITS quite a few years ago. It's probably one of our most popular series that we did, was putting together an AR platform. Back in the early days of not many instructional videos being around for something like that. So again, this is a 14.5. This is a BCM gun, a Bravo Company manufacturing. That's a Bravo Company manufacturing upper, as well as I think the lower is a Spikes. Yeah, these are so. Before you ask, this is a run that we did from Spikes Tactical. We got together with a bunch of our members on ITS, and we did a group buy basically, or a sale for these ITS lowers through Spikes. They're all gone now, so maybe one of these days we'll do something like that again, but for right now, that's where they came from. And then this is a Daniel Defense rail that I have on here, as well as one thing I wanted to show in the build was that you could replace a rail and do things like that and maintain the front sight, the fixed front sight. So that's one of the things I did in the build. This is a Haley Strategic Thorntail mount with a Surefire light, and this is the adjustable KM2 head here on the Surefire that can adjust from white to IR light. So as you can see, I've got a D-ball on here too, so if I'm running nods, I can just do point shooting with the D-ball and the laser aiming device. I got an Aimpoint T1 on here, and if you guys have heard the news on the EOTechs, hopefully you are abandoning the EOTech platform because you need to. Go with the Aimpoint T1 and T2 now. So it's got a Magpul backup iron sight, a rear one, and then also it's got a Magpul ASAP, Magpul accessories. This is the original. What the hell is this? angle foregrip, AFG. So this is the AFG. This is the Gen 2 on this other gun, which I'll get to in a second. So they've made a little bit of advancement in that. So again, just a simple walkthrough of the 14.5 I run. I've really been a huge fan of the 14.5 since I built it. It's got also a battle comp on the front, and I really like the way that it definitely pushes the nose down as you're shooting too. So I've really been a fan of how this gun has run over the years since I've built it. I'd really like to build another couple of these too, just to have multiple 14.5s with different setups on them. So that's one thing I'm considering too. And then I've recently built a 300 blackout rifle. That's something I've wanted to do for a while. We documented this build as well on ITS. Myself and Mike built ARs at the same time. We kind of went through the build process on these. This aim point mount I really like. This is from Scalarworks. I think I'm pronouncing that right, Scalarworks. And it's a very lightweight mount. This is the new Aimpoint T2. I really like the flip up shoot through caps on this thing too, to keep it protected. Can't say enough good things about the T2 so far. I really like it. And again, by shoot through, I mean basically you can see through those flip up caps too. So just so you know, I didn't do that before. None of those are loaded. Again, with the 300, this was built, again, with the Daniel Defense rail. What I tried to do with the rail was find something that could basically capture the KX5 Noveske pig inside of it. So basically it sits inside the rail itself. This is a 10.3-inch barrel from Daniel Defense. Again, 300 black. This is a NEA stock on here. It's a collapsible stock. I do also have one of the new MVB stocks that I'm going to try out too, that I've been wanting to get on here. So that's one of my projects, my back burner things that I'm going to do eventually. One thing I'd like to do too is see if the circumference of this can also fit a suppressor inside of it too. That's one thing I'd like to look at eventually as well. So at any rate, it leads me to our next question over coffee, which is, someone asked about the Sling setup I have. So Gabriel R. asked over, I'm interested in knowing what product was purchased to adapt the padded VCAS with the Magpul ASAP. I have an ASAP and would like to keep and use like yours. So we have documented this in an article too, but I'm happy to go over it here on Gear Tasting as well. So as you can see, what I've got in the back here is, this is a mash hook. This is an adapter that Blue Force Gear sells. So what they sell is not only the adapter like this, but then they sell a 1.5-inch male buckle as well. So you have to get both of these things. So this is the mash hook adapter. And one thing to note too, all of their slings are made with 1.5-inch webbing. So that's why it needs the 1.5-inch male buckle as well as the mash hook. So basically what I've done is take, so actually this is not the Magpul ASAP, this is the IKEA Kippy's slap plate. I don't know why I just messed that up. So I guess I had it in my head that he was asking about the ASAP, because I did used to have an ASAP on here. So maybe that was an older video he was watching. So anyway, I've gone to the slap plate because I do like it better. It doesn't have that extra ring that knocks around a lot. This does move and make noise, but not like that Magpul ASAP does. So I did replace that. Sorry about that. So anyway, you need those two components, and then basically what you do is you convert a VCAS to this configuration. So a standard VCAS, which I'm going to talk about in a second, just kind of comes like this. It's got the option to just thread that webbing at the ends through things. And I came up with the idea to basically take one of the ends and put it through an HK style hook. So I have that there, and I put 100 mile an hour tape around there just to secure that. And then I kind of taped up the slack there according to my size preference. So as you can see with this other one too, and I've basically got 3 slings that are identical that I've made this modification with. So all 3 of them have that same configuration. So again, this is size to me with that take up there. And then what I've done is I've put I think this is a Midwest Industries HK style hook mount. So what I've done is added that to all my rifles up at this position. So all I have to do is reach up here, grab that, unhook the HK style hook, and clip in right here to a D-ring that I've cut and modified. So as you can see on this, what I did is I take this off real quick. So I can go from 2-point to single point. That's kind of the idea here. So as you can see on the original VCAS, it's got this area up front where you can, basically what I did is I took an awl, so I shoved an awl right through there, and I took a D-ring, like this ITW plastic D-ring, ITW Nexus D-ring, and I took a pair of bolt cutters and I snipped it. So basically what it did is it broke the D-ring, just like that. And I just moved that out of the way and threaded it through that hole that I made here, so it allowed that D-ring to just sit like that in the webbing. And that's my clip-in point. I've never had any problems with that. I did that mod, got in the early days of ITS. That was probably close to 6 years ago now, so it's been a long time since I've done that. And I've ran these rifles extensively with these Sling setups, and I've never had a problem with clipping into them. But Blue Force Gear, in their infinite wisdom, has come out with some stuff in the last, I guess, probably year or two that does roughly the same type of thing that I've done with my modifications. And I just wanted to walk through that too, because this is gear tasting, and that's something I'm working on too, is to kind of evaluate that to see if that's going to work for me as well. So what they came out with was a universal wire loop with a push button socket. So you can see that on my other rifle here that I started to put that on to start testing it. So it's basically something you girth hitch. You know what a girth hitch is if you watch your Not of the Week series. You girth hitch around a stock, or in this case, since there's not any type of thing to put a stock plate onto, I guess you could put it here, but actually I'm not convinced you could on the NEA stock. So you really need something like this. And what you would do is take this is an unmodified VCAS sling. So I would take this end here, I'd put that through the universal wire loop. So this would come over my body like this. Again, if I had the gun here, this would hook on to that universal wire loop adapter. And then the front basically would thread through one of these red swivels that they made. So the red swivel is basically their idea of the standard push button, which releases these little ball bearings that allows it to clip into something like that hole right there. So that fits through like this, and then if you need to release that, you just grab that pull handle and it disconnects from the universal wire adapter. All right, so up front, what I'm going to do is take this Impact Weapons Components QD mount, and I'd add that to the top rail here, and that would give me a clip-in point for that red swivel. So again, we take this side here, had my swivel, which is right here. I would clip this in, and then that would interface again with that front red swivel there. So I could still use that to make the 2-point, single-point conversion that I'm used to with my slings. But obviously there's quite a few components involved in moving to something like this, especially when I already have my slings set up like that. So it's still a work in progress. I definitely want to try it out to see if it is any easier for me. One thing that I kind of have never liked about these, what do you call these? I'm going to have to read this again, sorry. A QD mount, I always forget that. So one thing I don't like about the QD on this is that I've never liked that I have to push a button to disengage something. Granted, yes, I'm activating a hook to get it off of there, but I don't know, I've just always had hesitation with these things. So, and then something to keep in mind, which I'm sure you guys at home have already kind of thought about too, is this moves around quite a bit. So actually, taking that sling and moving it to the back, you would almost have to hold this piece too, which it would be more static because you have weight on it from the sling being over your shoulder, but at the same time that is a consideration. Just like with this sling too, I mean when I go from 2-point to single point on this, that's also consideration here. I've got the weight of the rifle here as I'm unclipping from this, and I'm finding that D-ring. So that's another consideration as well. So just a couple of things I'm working through just to show you the way my mind works with the sling stuff that I have. So hopefully that answers your question. We'll make sure we link to both the article on the sling modification as well as a rifle build stuff on the description in this YouTube video. All right, guys, thanks for watching Gear Tasting, where we show you what we're up to and currently evaluating in ITS headquarters. Remember, if you have any questions, use the # Gear Tasting on any social media platform. We'll find it and get your questions on the air. Thanks for watching.